everyone, and welcome to another episode of Breaking Into Cybersecurity. I am not Renee Small. Unfortunately, she was not able to make it today, but I will carry on the tradition. That being said, thank you everyone for thank you everyone who's following us on LinkedIn. Don't forget to follow myself as well as our guest. And then for those of you that are on YouTube, hit that subscribe button and that notification button. Um, this is a live podcast, so send in your questions. Tell us where you're calling in from. That way we can interact with you and have the conversation. We have an amazing CISO here today, and we're looking forward to his opinions, but we also want to see your comments to see if you have any questions for them and kind of help integrate you into the conversation. With that being said, Siva, you want to give us a little bit of a background on you? And hopefully I didn't butcher your name.
No, you did not. You're one of the few that did not butcher my name. So,
Okay.
Chris, thanks for having me here. So, a little bit about myself. I am currently the head of security at ServiceMax. We are a late-stage startup company that is the market leader in field service management space, a SaaS company by all means and tradition. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And you want to give us a little bit of background for yourself? Like, how did you get into cybersecurity? Was
Mhm.
it through the traditional route or was it a totally crazy way?
Well, I would not call it totally crazy way, but it was more like the curiosity that drove me towards security. So when I started off my career, right, I was a pure software development engineer. All I
Okay.
did was build enterprise applications, Java, Python, C++, that kind of stuff. And as time progressed, I was working with JP Morgan at the time. We were building investment banking, data transportation APIs. It was pretty interesting research-oriented work. But as time progressed, I started engaging with the risk technology team, right? So I started building applications for the risk team. So essentially, how do we, automate and manage risk? How can we identify, risk oriented with investments and other functions of the bank, and et cetera, et cetera. One of the components was meeting the regulatory requirements, right? And that is sort of my first a sneak peek into various aspects of security beyond just the product and technology space. So I had the opportunity to work with auditors, work with some regulatory bodies, work with internal and external folks that kind of put a security and regulatory hat on, right,
Yeah.
as opposed to sitting and coding. So I kind of took a bit of an interest. And, this is pretty interesting. Like the way they look at problems, the way they think is beyond just building an application. So I thought, it's like I said, curiosity drove my career. So I thought, maybe I should kind of learn more about this. So I kind of said sort of a not goodbye, but kind of a pause to my software development career and took a job with PwC. Again, great organization. I had the opportunity to work with pretty smart people across the country, traveled to various cities, but security was the primary driver: security, privacy, and risk. So as that went on a few years, I had the opportunity to do both technical aspects of security and the non-technical strategic aspects of security. So as time progressed, I wanted to take this combined experience and start building security from ground up at a startup or of the sort. And
Mhm.
and I'm here. So it's kind of curiosity. I was very curious around, what are these consultants talking about? Like how is it different than what I am doing or what I'm thinking when I'm building an application?
Wow.
That's the way I got into security.
Yeah, nice. I mean, and that's one of the competencies that I discuss very often. That curiosity is one of those things that really helps you because whether you're in incident response, you want to figure out like how did they get in and
Mm-hmm.
what did they do next, or
Mm-hmm.
like you like what are the regulatory requirements that we need to meet in the software design,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's very interesting.
Yeah.
We have some callers coming in. Um, Looks like we have Fortune from uh, Lawrenceville, Georgia, and then we have Ula from Canada. So have folks from all over North America calling in. So with regards to your view and your experiences,
Mhm.
um, do you feel that we have a shortage of people in cybersecurity? Do we have that talent gap in cybersecurity when we're recruiting people? What's your point of view there?
I mean, I don't think there is a gap or shortage in people, but
Mhm.
there is a gap in the expectations, in my opinion, right? See, security is one of those spaces where anyone can come in based on irrespective of their background. You don't have to be pure technical guy to be a security person. Let us say we have a person that is analytical, that enjoys reading data, looking at data, investigating around what's happening. So security has like incident response and forensics that can very well align with their interests and goals. Similarly, we have, let us say, a strategy based person that want to do a lot of thinking, right? There is risk. How do we position risk? If there is a person that is a talker, that enjoys working with, collaborating with cross functional teams, having conversations and understanding stuff, then there is compliance, right? And then if, let us say, there is a person that's purely technical, somebody that can roll up the sleeves, uh, get their hands dirty and code, there is application security, right? On the other side of the spectrum, if there is somebody that has a small attention span, there are people like that are pretty smart, right? So for them, there is all these other aspects such as penetration testing, right? Sit, find a vulnerability, that's it, take a break, come back, find another vulnerability. Penetration testing, red teaming, there are various aspects of security that can cater to various personalities of humans, right? So it's one of the rare spaces that anyone can be happy with, right? So that's why I say, right, there is no shortage of skill. There are curious people out there that want to get in, but there is a gap in expectations, right? I'm hiring manager. I do see a lot of hiring posts out there for a 2-year analyst job. They expect to have CSSP, which in itself requires 5 years of experience, right? So there's always this conflict, right? And also we expect quite a bit, because let us say we have a security operations person. We expect them to know everything about corporate security and everything about disaster recovery on the cloud and incident management on the SIM. And we want them to be very, very proficient with SOAR and all this other crazy stuff. So the point is, we need to kind of set our expectations so that we we give the opportunity to hire and grow mentality, as
Yeah.
opposed to hire and hit the ground running on day zero.
Yeah. Um, One of the comments that you mentioned was that individuals with a short attention span, and
Mhm.
Brooklyn 29 on YouTube says, "Thank you for saying that, Siva, because they have a short attention span." And one of the challenges for me as well. I mean, I have ADHD. I recently was diagnosed having ADHD as an adult. And when
Mhm.
I read more into it, it really does change the way that you approach things.
Mhm.
And I think the topic of tackling neurodiversity within this field has been a bit of a taboo. It's not talked about, and I think we should talk about it more because
Mhm.
I, this could be just my opinion, but I feel that there's a lot of neurodiversity within cybersecurity,
Mhm.
especially those that potentially do like malware analysis, because
Mhm.
you have someone that they just have that really long drive to figure out what's happening, and they dive in the code, and then 8 hours later they come back out.
Mhm. No, so firstly, I'm sorry to hear that you're going through this, and I completely Agree with you. So I have personally known people that go through a lot of trouble, and they they take time to identify what they really love and kind of stick to it. Like I had a colleague that is so good at technology that does not want to go the management direction because I'm truly happy, right? And you know all I do is bug bounty, right? All he does is bug bounty. He's like,
Yeah,
hey, I go on the internet, I find people that is trying to find gaps in their system, and that is my requirement. I don't have to be speaking with anyone. I don't have to be dependent on anyone. I roll up my sleeves. I work all day, get paid for it, right? So there are a lot of variety of people, and I think we should definitely talk about these things, out and bring them out and in open. I'm sure some of we have fairly mutual connections, Chris. So I know quite a few people out there that go through a lot of stress in security jobs, right? Not just it's not just the CISO or the head of security that goes through this stress. At every level, right? There is a lot of stress because we are one of those functions that need to be very alert 24 by 7, right? We never know what is going to come which way. The recent Log4j is the perfect example, which ruined Christmas for a lot of folks, right? So, and I agree. I think we should definitely talk about the diversity and the neurological concerns.
yeah. And the other thing that I wanted to bring up when it comes to that is once you understand um, someone's neurodiversity, you could take advantage of that.
Hmm.
There's been stories of companies in Germany that take individuals that you mentioned, like that have that desire to dive in deep into the code,
Hmm.
and they want use them just for that role and
Hmm.
have a whole department around that role. So definitely something we should definitely talk about more. Brooklyn says yes, neurodiversity would be a great topic. And then we have another long question from Fortune. She said she had an interview on Monday with a company called Aqua Security,
Hmm.
and they're working on their master's degree and graduating at the end of the year. They're
Hmm.
taking their Security Plus this weekend, and they're in the Army Reserves Intel, and they have a part time job as a clinical analyst. Wow, they're taking
Wow. Yeah.
many things from different areas, and you're trying to transition into cyber. Their job is complex, technical, and requires a lot of critical thinking. Um, and they were asked in their interview, oh, and it cut off. Aw, man. That was like a run up.
Yeah.
Fortune, if you could follow up with the rest of that question, I don't think it. Oh, I could see it over here on LinkedIn. They were asked about their military experience, but was not convinced that the training would suffice as a cyber threat analyst.
Ah.
And they weren't sure what to expect. Um, they were wondering how would a CISO deem such experience as relevant or not?
Actually, having an army background, right, would be perfect for any cyber role, right? Because like they go through so much rigor, right? They know how to handle a stressful situation, right?
Yeah,
See, having a process on paper is completely different when things start to hit fan, right? So going through, I mean, I know I have worked very, very closely with a lot of men and women that served in the military, and they are the perfectly poised, controlled people when there is an incident, right? Having an army background is perfect, and not to mention you are actually going through quite a few other things. Fortune here, like he's already working on his Security Plus, working on his master's in cybersecurity, working as a physician, or supporting physicians. All of this shows the drive, right, towards getting into security, right? That attitude carries a lot more weight than sometimes just a skill set. If you are looking for an analyst role, I think you would be a perfect fit.
Yeah, it looks like they were looking for a threat analyst role,
Mhm.
and their reserve role status within the army was as an intel analyst. So
Yeah.
what it sounds like is, if the hiring manager that they spoke to wasn't convinced, maybe they didn't highlight how the transferable skills that they worked on would be relevant to that role.
Most of the times that is what happens, right? So because the hiring managers, they go into the interview like, hey, this is the kind of skill set that I'm looking for, right? So again, it also depends on how the candidate is kind of marketing their own skill. This
Yeah,
also depends on the hiring manager to identify, hey, what are all the skills that I can take from this person? If I am to get all these skills, what is remaining? What are the gaps that maybe I can cover from a different role, or maybe the person can improve on those skills, right? It kind of takes a bit of a marriage to be specific. There is a bit of a compromise. That is
yeah,
that is what pretty much all of security is, right? I'm pretty confident, even as a security leader, we are not subject matter experts in every aspect of security, right? And there's
yeah.
always learning in the space, right? uh, I yeah.
Yeah, so I think the response to Fortune might be like, um maybe look at the way that you're projecting your skills, you're marketing your skills for a hiring manager, and maybe have some mock interviews with others that are in your industry. That way they could potentially highlight what you're missing or how you're marketing yourself.
Great. LinkedIn is a great space. I'm pretty confident. There are a lot of leaders that are more than happy to at least, you know, review your resume, have a mock interview sort of a conversation with you, Fortune. I know I'm happy to help. I'm pretty sure a lot of security leaders would, right? I think preparing and articulating your skill kind of is very important, given there is a lot of dynamic activity that happens in this space.
And it's a hot space as well. You have
Yeah.
lots of candidates
Hmm.
that are going for these roles. So sometimes there's a lot to choose from, and the hiring manager might, like you said, go in looking for this skill set, and this skill set. And if they don't obviously see it, um, based on your marketing, they might not be convinced.
Hmm.
So that brings us to another a question that I had that
Hmm.
um, pings off something you mentioned earlier. You said that there's a mismatch of expectations.
Hmm.
Is that mismatch of expectations both on the candidate side and the hiring manager side? Because I think on the candidate side, sometimes we have schools, boot camps that kind of market their training, their master's degree as, you get this and you're going to get the job for sure.
Hmm.
And after they get that, they realize that in the real world,
Hmm.
it's not that easy.
Not just books and degrees. I think even movies to some extent, or pop culture to some extent, is also the culprit here. You know, predominantly, right? Security is presented as a person wearing a hoodie and gloves and trying to break into, like, there you go. They're trying to break into like complex systems, writing a lot of code with the dark background and green font. In reality, right? In reality, that is not every job, right? I think there is also a mismatch of expectations on the candidates to some extent, right? And the way I basically look at this is, just like software engineering or any other career, right? There is an evolution, right? So on day one, nobody is going to expect you to break into like super secret servers, right? At the same time,
Yeah.
uh, not every job is that sexy, right? So the way I guide my mentees around this is, right, one, understand what are all domains within security. Try and understand what goes in a holistic fashion within cybersecurity, right? And you know there is no one size fits all kind of a degree out there where you do masters from this university and you automatically get into like Department of Defense cyber wing, right?
Yeah.
So I think we need to set our own expectations to some extent and understand this is not a sprint. Security career is more of a marathon, right?
Yeah.
And on the hiring manager side, the challenge there is the landscape is evolving so fast, right? I know it took me more than 8 months to hire a cloud security engineer, right? Purely because there is talent out there, but being aware of cloud ecosystem such as AWS does not make them a cloud security engineer, right? So there's also some expectations that I will have to, the hiring managers will have to set with the candidate, saying, hey, this is how the job is going to be in the first 30, 60, 90 days, and this is how the job is going to be in about a year time, right?
Mhm.
This is my expectation. Does this align with your short-term and long-term goals, right? Having a conversation transparently would
Yeah.
actually I know there are quite a few candidates that voluntarily pulled their application back, right, after I had that initial conversation, right? Hey,
I
my
love that. I love
expectation.
that conversation though.
Yeah.
I think all too often you read a job description and you have the interview and they're two totally different things.
Yeah.
The job description versus the interview. But then I love that you said that this is what we're going to onboard you in the first 30 days. We're not going to expect you to be running right now, but
Mhm,
we do expect you to do some things during this
mhm,
time, and then this is how we expect you to grow. I totally love that, because I think most times people come hiring managers are like, okay, they come in day one and you're gonna start producing at 100%, but that's not the case.
no. So this is what I say, right? If the hiring managers are not giving you that breakdown, it is the opportunity for the candidate to proactively ask that question. You need to ask the hiring managers, hey, no, what do you expect of this role in the first 30, 60, 90, right? If the hiring
Great
manager is
question.
not able to clearly articulate that, then the job description definitely is going to have a mismatch with the actual job on the on the field, right? So some
Yeah.
of these things, again, it's an evolution, like I said, right? This is not going to happen overnight, but as we see more and more people coming into the space and more diversity happening in the space, uh, these things will automatically fall in place. Is my hope.
Okay. We have a question from David on LinkedIn. Siva, what
Mhm,
projects would you say you appreciate to see from an entry-level cybersecurity engineer or analyst, like a
mhm.
Raspberry Pi building a cybersecurity project? What sort of additional curious projects do you like to see outside of their experience?
Right. So again, it depends on what kind of role that you're trying to break into, right? If you are looking for a, like I said, analyst kind of a role, I'd
Mhm.
rather see you do some kind of an incident management related work, right? Take take like an open source thing, let's say Log4j, compile a GitHub related incident report, right? That clearly articulates, hey, this is the problem that occurred on November of 19th, and since then these are the 5-10 things that had occurred. Apache released this many versions, and this is the nature of patches that have been expected. These are the companies that have been impacted, or if these are the technologies that have been impacted. That basically kind of gives the hiring manager a sneak peek into, oh, this person has the ability to conduct a due diligence around incident management, right? But if you're looking for a security engineer kind of a role, right, I would expect you to write have like a GitHub repository that that shows your scripting skills, right? Somebody that has created all the shell and Python and PowerPoint, shell and Python scripts that can achieve automation around general secure SDLC, right? Somebody that has done penetration testing, somebody that has experience in using open source VMs and trying to baking into them. There are quite a few platforms that will let you do these things, right? And having your own bug bounty account, and showing your rank within HackerOne or something that you have achieved in the last couple of quarters. These are some of the things that will show some value. The projects such as Raspberry Pi, they may open up doors with more of an IoT security related companies, maybe to large extent, but your traditional SaaS companies don't necessarily deal with Raspberry Pis, right? Again, they are definitely interesting and exciting, but if you want to leverage your work to get into a position of your liking, I'd like to think in this direction. Where I want to go, what is the nature of work that I'll be doing, how can I show that I already have a head start in doing such work.
Yeah, I think the idea that spawned from a lot of the Raspberry Pi projects are
Mm-hmm.
like setting up an onion router,
Mm-hmm.
or like doing something that they wouldn't otherwise be able to do without spending thousands of dollars. So
Mm-hmm.
kind of creating those things, and I think that's why a lot of folks kind of go to the Raspberry Pi, and they mentioned thank you a lot for the response, very
Yeah.
useful. I know one of the non-for-profits that I support is called the Whole Cyberhuman Initiative, and like you mentioned earlier, when candidates come to us, we expose them to all the colors of the
Mm-hmm.
color wheel for information security. And
Mm-hmm.
recently, one of the challenges that we did included something like that incident response situation
Mm-hmm.
where you look at an incident, you create a report for the GRC side or the analyst side of things, and then included other bug bounties, other hack the box type
Mm-hmm.
engagements. And one of the things that I've actually recommended for a long time is if you do hack the box and
Mm-hmm.
you want to say get involved in reverse engineering or something like that, you now go, okay, so these are all the things that I had to do to achieve it. Now go in reverse. Look for your logs. Look
Mm-hmm.
for all the indicators of compromise along the way from the steps that you did so that you can follow what a threat actor would have done to achieve
Mm-hmm.
what you did.
Exactly. So there are like two, for anyone that want to stay technical in this space, there are two resources. Like one is, like you mentioned, Hack the Box. The other is Try Hack Me,
Yep.
right? So the benefit with Try Hack Me is that they give bite-sized videos that the candidates can learn skills and try those skills on the environment,
Yeah.
right? So I think it's very fortunate to see how, if you look at traditional technical routes, right, there are all these coding dojos, that will teach you skills, right?
Mhm.
Security, I'm so thrilled to see within the security space those things have started popping up. Like Try Hack Me is one, like Hack the Box is the other. There are a few other places. More than that, there are so many open source security Slack and Discord channels that anyone can join and just brainstorm with fellow curious people out on the internet, right? I mean, again, I'm part of quite a few channels like that where we discuss about bots and stuff like that. I know, Chris, you and I are on a few, right? So for anyone that wants to essentially get into security, the resources these days are ample, right? And given that everybody assumes that there is a security shortage, there are people that are willing to actually help you figure out a way to break into security.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the other questions from our guest is right now you're working on their networking skills and writing down notes from incident response and security operations fundamentals. That brings up an interesting point: is how is networking different in
Hmm.
a cloud first world from your experience?
So, well, it is, so the way it is different is it is part of an evolution chain, right? So back in the day, there were VPNs, right? The company had VPN. There is like DNS protection. Somebody will have to monitor some of these things. Even now, they will have to monitor. But in the cloud first world, the necessity of having a VPN has started to go down, especially in the last 2 years where everybody is working remotely, right? Unless you are a financially, unless you're a financial service company where everything is, under lock and key. These days, the corporate-wide VPN has reasonably gone down, right? So from an evolution standpoint, if you are a networking, if you're a person with networking skills, then the way you should look at cloud is how is this going to transfer onto a cloud ecosystem, right? There are web application firewalls, there are VPC logs, there are other ELB logs that every analyst will have to go through in case there is an event or an incident, right? So the way I look at it is network has shifted itself from a corporate security domain to a cloud security domain, right?
Yeah.
It is a way for also you as an individual to evolve from a corporate security space to a cloud security space. It actually opened up a path for you there,
Yeah,
right?
definitely agree with that. And when you think about the differences in infrastructure as a service,
Mm-hmm.
platform as a service, software as a service, how does that affect your shared responsibility as an
Mm-hmm.
organization or an individual? That becomes another interesting aspect. So
Mm-hmm.
question for you that I had,
Mm-hmm.
for individuals looking to get into security, would
Mm-hmm.
you expect them to have cloud experience?
I would expect them to know how to spin up a cloud account and understand some intrinsics. Let us say I at least want them to be aware of what an S3 bucket is and why is it used. I want them to at least know what is the differentiation between a platform as a service and infrastructure as a service. Some of these things, right? Uh, but for anyone that is like completely non-technical, shifting their complete perspective from a different line of work into security, it is going to be a little challenge. My recommendation for them, this is my recommendation, everybody is different.
Yeah.
My recommendation is to see if you can get into jobs that are with MSSP providers, right? Or positions that are with consulting companies. The reason is the amount of hands-on experience that you will get working for some MSSPs is going to be very, very valuable when you transition over from a service-based MSSP company to a SaaS-based organization, right? Companies like these have, at least in my experience, my conversations with some MSSP providers has, it is, I would not say it is a lower baseline standard to break in, but the opportunity to learn in those companies is tremendous, right? If you're having a difficult time breaking into an existing organization, break into those companies, stick around for at least like 3-4 years, right? That will give you a lot of insight into how data flows and how cloud works and things like that. And then by the time you would also have a good understanding of where your heart is, right? Do you want to be a cloud guy? Do you want to be a operations guy? You will you'll be in a good position to make that decision. And then moving on from the organization, that kind of is the route I would recommend to some of the non-technical folks.
Yeah, one of the other similar ways that I've recommended is to go work for a vendor.
Vendor, exactly.
Because
Yeah,
not only do you have to know that
yeah,
vendor's product, but you have to know the ecosystem. You have to know
exactly.
what the customers are looking for, how to solve their problems,
Mm-hmm,
and everything like that. So that's definitely another way.
mm-hmm,
So as we talk about the evolution, one of
mm-hmm,
the things that is changing is from a technical aspect, coding is becoming more prevalent and more required for many roles,
mm-hmm,
because now you're having infrastructure as code,
mm-hmm,
GRC as code, everything
mm-hmm,
everything as code.
mm-hmm.
What are your recommendations when it comes to that?
So again, not every job requires for us to sit and code, but having an idea of automation and having an idea of uh, how can a business control can be translated into a technology conversation, right? Being technically savvy enough to hold yourself both in conversation with the business folks and in conversation with the technical folks, that eventually is going to become a baseline requirement, right? uh, it doesn't matter which kind of domain you are in, right? You will always engage some or the other way with some technical function of the company, whether it is engineering or cloud or even with your vendors around Siemens, or like everybody writes code these days, right? I think you don't need to be an expert at writing enterprise level application building, but you need to be at least familiarize yourself with what are these people talking about, right? How can I interpret this into business language if you are communicating with your senior leadership, right? Or if you're communicating with your own technical members of the team, right? You need to understand the intrinsics of it, not necessarily the actual syntax.
Yeah, the joke I make is, um, I can spin up infrastructure on JSON, but you don't want your enterprise running on my
But
JSON.
no, that's a very good one. Like there is also all this jargon these days, right? For example, I'm sure you're familiar, right? Just in the cloud space, in the last year or so, there have been so many acronyms created and products built, right? There is something from CSPM to now, CPPM to now I'm hearing a few other acronyms within just one domain. Now imagine translating or extrapolating that to other spaces, right? So it is going to be a complex world, as we evolve, but that's part of learning curve, right?
And that
Security.
goes back to the competency of curiosity that you mentioned in the
Yeah.
beginning. It's
Hmm.
it's always evolving, it's always changing, and you always have to learn something new.
Hmm.
Um, Going to that question, what do you do to keep up with the evolving changes?
So one thing I do, I enjoy, reading the articles. So I subscribe to, cyber news, websites and channels. Like I said, I'm also part of quite a few Slack and Discord channels where, other security people are willing and happy to share what they think is
Mhm.
is the latest and greatest in security. Now, keeping up with the news, things like that, keeping up with the technology. And one more thing I always do is I speak to vendors quite a bit, right?
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, there is like build versus buy in this day and age. It's all about commercial off the shelf solutions. So uh, I always keep up with the vendors, right? I always try to understand what is somebody building and why, right? How is it solving, what problem are they solving, and is that problem relevant to me, right? And having such conversations will not just will not just help you to keep up to date with the trend, but also gives an opportunity to introspect and understand, right? Okay, why haven't I considered this in my strategy, or should I even consider this in my strategy, right? Things of that sort. That's one way to keep anyone up to date.
I love that build versus buy, but then that brings in another complexity
Mm-hmm,
um, when it comes to third-party risk and
mm-hmm,
managing third-party risk. For example, SolarWinds,
mm-hmm,
NotPetya. So when you're looking at this build versus buy, and you choose buy, what
mm-hmm,
are some of the ways that you look to mitigate that risk of potentially not being able to see the code or
mm-hmm.
not being able to control that they updated to the last version of Log4j?
Right. So we have a third-party risk management program that is part of the security function. So where we uh, do a pre-screening of the vendor, understand what is the nature of this product. Is it touching our environment? Is it touching the data? If it is touching the data, what kind of data it is? We have like a not not 300 questions definitely, but about like 5 6 questions that we try to understand the nature of the interaction the vendor would have with the organization, and based on that we have uh, very tailored assessment that we send out. Now we do send out assessment, but the idea of having that assessment is to just a comprehensive insight into the vendor's security posture, right? If they already have some pre-filled documents, we're happy to accept those, but more than that, we look at their pen testing reports, right? We try to understand how their product is handling data, right? How they are handling authentication and authorization, all that good stuff. And if we still have questions, one thing that I have been doing lately is hopping on a call with the CISO of the vendor itself, right? And I want to hear it from the horse's mouth to understand what do they think problems in their security like, right? What are the top three things that they're looking to solve from a security standpoint, right? Again, we do this only for the. We also have a vendor classification. We classify vendors into tier one, two, three, fours depending on how they
Yeah, yeah,
interact.
yeah,
So most of the effort is put into tier ones because they somehow touch the data. A compromise on their side will have a grave impact onto our organization. So that is how we approach them. But the challenge I see with third party risk is it is with the 0 days, right? Now, what happened with SolarWinds that you mentioned, right? Nobody could have actually even caught on the customer side, because like there's no third party risk management that actually goes into that level and say somebody actually had a password compromised, right? So there's always a risk that we cannot plan for.
yeah, definitely, definitely. Well, we have about 15 minutes left, and I wanted to get into an interesting topic and see your points of view.
Mm-hmm,
Earlier we talked about the shortage or potential shortage of skills.
mm-hmm,
So let's assume that we have a shortage of skills. How
mm-hmm,
do we develop a pipeline for talent to get into this industry
mm-hmm,
and help prepare us for the next 20 years?
mm-hmm.
What are your views on that?
So one thing, at least I do mentor a few candidates, like no more than three in a year, or something like that. But the way I basically think through this is what where is the shortage like, right? What is the space? For instance, we readily know there is a huge shortage, right, in cloud security. Like I said, it took me 8 months to hire a candidate, and what I realized is it's not the shortage of the candidates, it is the mismatch of the alignment between the expectations and the availability of the right people. So the way I look to bridge this gap is creating more awareness, having talks and having encouraging people to attend security conferences, right? Again, not just like things like RSA or DEFCON. Like I know they're like too big of beasts, but even local ones, B sides,
I
right?
love these.
Local Silicon Valley chapters. look for candidates that are already part of your ISC forum. Like, look for candidates that are already part of your community that you are part of, right? Speak to your colleagues and peers in the industry. I'm pretty confident everyone out there has a person or two on their team that is looking for the next challenge, right? And if let us say if I reach out to you and say, Chris, I'm looking to hire like a senior staff level application security engineer, and if you have a candidate on your team that is looking for their next adventure, I'm pretty certain that you would at least make an introduction, right? So things like that. Caring and sharing resources is one way to bridge the gap of shortage, right? As opposed to competing for the same resource, we need to start sharing resources. That will help everybody out.
Yeah, one of the comments from Professor Roger White is that works. I'm working on that at Black Cybersecurity Association to develop that diversity and skills pipeline. And love the comments, Professor White. And yeah, that's another thing that I think we need to do is expand our search area to not just like cybersecurity associations. Go to law practices, go to audit firms, go to mathematicians, scientists. Like having that diversity of thought also helps too. But we also need individuals from different experiences, different cultures, and that will all help solving complex problems.
I cannot agree more. I mean, I actually interviewed for a role. I interviewed a person that has done their law degree, right? They have worked at a law firm for a few years doing regulation, and they want to get into security because there is this whole evolution of security and privacy regulations that is happening. So I interviewed this candidate, and I think there is a lot of interest that is being expressed by cross-functional, cross-domain candidates to enter cybersecurity. It is an opportunity for us to see if they fit the bill. That's the one way of bringing more folks in.
Now let's talk about earlier in the pipeline. How do we get that awareness in college, high school, elementary school, middle school? Like how do we extend the pipeline, shift left, should we say, to earlier in the students' lives so that they're aware of this and that it's not just a boys thing or a nerd thing, however you want to show it, that labels that it might have, so everyone's welcome to it.
Yes. So very recently, I have done a talk at a school about why college education is important. What are the kind of careers that they can tap into if they were to go to college as opposed to stopping their education after school, right? That was the intention of the topic, right? Halfway through, right, the students kind of derailed the entire conversation, and we started talking about cybersecurity, right? Because like they were so interested in what kind of a job the speaker is doing, and it's not just me. Even there were a couple of other panel folks that were speaking, right? So what kind of job the panel was doing, and how did they get in, and what are the kind of challenges that they face. So to answer your question, the way we create this awareness is to start going to your alumni, right? Go back to your school, go back to your university, have a conversation, right? Saying, hey, I've studied here, or even your local school. You don't have to kind of go back to your alum, right? Go to your locals, or if there is an opportunity to speak, right? Have a conversation around why cybersecurity is an interesting, evolving, and a fruitful career, and how security has a little to no difficulty entering into the space. What are the skills that's needed? I think that at least if you speak to 50 students, even if 5 kids show interest, right, that's a win,
Yeah.
right? That is one way of creating awareness.
Okay. Here's an interesting question for you. Do you,
Mhm.
do you see cybersecurity as a profession or as a trade?
I actually see security as a trade, right? The reason is it is embedding itself, right, into every aspect of the organization, right? Think of it. 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, security was always treated as a back office function, right? The role of a CISO never existed, right? Or if it has existed, it was never given the uh, same respect as a CISO is receiving today, right? But what has changed, right? The organizations evolved, so did the bad actors, and security has kind of established itself as a business function as opposed to be establishing as a technology function and tucking away as a back office entity, right? So when we start treating security function as a business unit that supports the enablement of the organization, that is where you see that you know we interact with HR when it comes to how employee risks are managed. We interact with engineering on how product risks and products are being built. We interact with legal in case there is an incident and need to engage with federal agencies. We interact with finance in case there is a financial fraud or somebody fell for phishing on any of the other function sites. We interact with sales, right, to help customers understand how well we position ourselves in security. The whole customer trust piece is what I'm referring to, right? We interact with customer support, right, in case there is a disruption to the business that has happened because of a security event, right? So just by looking at it, right, security need to interface with every business, every function of the company. So why not security can be established as a function itself, right?
Okay,
That's why
okay.
I see that that is how at least I see it.
And what are your views? If you see it as a trade, many trades have apprenticeship.
Mhm.
What are your views on potentially creating a pipeline via apprenticeships where you're
Mhm.
learning on the job, you're still getting that education,
Mhm.
and you're growing like that?
So I think having an entrance and apprenticeship is good. I think we are already I'm part of a mentor program where we work with a university, right? We coach people to some extent and see if they can get an internship, right, while they are in the school, so that they can understand the real world of security, right? See, the challenge there is this: getting an apprenticeship is one thing, right? The Given security is considered like a very what do you say, uh, very obscure area, purely because of the domains, right? See, if I'm getting an intern, right, should I put him or her shadow GRC? Should I have them shadow product security engineer? Should I have them shadow security operations entity? Do I have them shadow cloud security? Should I have them shadow data protection? There are like multiple ways, right? It kind of becomes a difficult decision even for the hiring manager. Okay, who should I have person this person shadow, right? And the person may not even know that security has this many domains. So I think apprenticeship program is a good one, but even before the program begins, they need to have like a conversation, like understand the personality of the person so that they can make a decision. You know what, given this person, I think they're technically, they may be technically savvy, so let me have them shadow a product engineer, right? That is what I would think. That's
Okay,
my opinion.
okay,
But schools or universities should partner with organizations to put a program in place.
okay. Um, I guess internships are a little bit slightly different than apprenticeships.
Well,
For
yeah.
example, in the electrical trade,
Mhm,
you start as a journeyman. No, you progress to a journeyman, but you come in with no skills, and then you
mhm,
start to learn on the job. Plus, they supply you with additional education
mhm,
on the side,
mhm.
and that's how you grow in the role. What are your views on that?
I think it's not that simple,
Hmm.
right? See, in case of a trade like that, right? You essentially you can maybe walk walk to a a company that provides electricians as service, and then and have somebody shadow the actual electrician, right? But in case of security, it's a lot more streamlined, right? um, it may work in case of an MSSP service provider, right? That is why I say, if there is somebody that is having a hard time breaking in, you should look for joining MSSP or some kind of a SOC service, right? Apprenticeship will definitely work in that space, right? But it may not truly work in a corporate environment, because it becomes a little bit difficult to manage the capacity itself.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, because
Um,
see, because there is access also related, right? Because you have an apprentice, are you going to give them the access that your engineer has? Maybe, maybe not, right? It
yeah.
kind of becomes a bit of uh, you know challenge on how we deal with the logistics of it,
Okay,
right?
okay. Um, one of the questions from our audience is,
Mhm.
what is your favorite cybersecurity related book?
Mm, these days, what I'm reading is basically the 2020 yearbook, right? That I recently got, that was sent to me. Uh, at least that's my latest one today. I think Cyber Warfare is a good one, written by Nick Shevlioff. It's a very good book. Anyone who is looking for a non-technical take on security, they should definitely read the book. It's a very good one, right?
Okay, okay,
If you are looking for a more hands-on books, then practical pen testing, things like that, they're really good ones.
okay.
Yeah,
Um, Another question is, how can they connect with you? Well, you're on LinkedIn.
I'm on LinkedIn.
Uh,
Yes.
Reach out, connect with him on LinkedIn, and he'd be happy to connect with you. We have a couple minutes left. I know one of the questions that we talked about before is security culture within an organization.
Mhm.
Um, how do you look to evolve security culture within your organization?
Uh, See, security and culture, right? They have evolved over a period of time. So back in the day, right, the human was the last line of defense, right? But I respectfully disagree with that statement. Today, I would say human is the first line of defense, right? Everybody in the organization need to know that security is their minimum responsibility. This is something that I always say within the team, right? Security is a team sport. I can have a multi-million dollar security budget, have all these fancy tools and defenses in place, but all it takes is like one person to assume that phishing link is real and click on that link. That is all it takes,
Yeah,
right? So security need to be ingrained in an organization. So everybody should think, when they find a USB drive while walking to work, that says like, hey, Game of Thrones all 8 seasons, they should know that they should not plug that into the office laptop, right? So you can only get to that state if you make security part of the culture, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah.
I mean, even if it says 2022 bonuses,
Bonuses,
yeah,
exactly.
don't plug it in.
Yeah. So
So
we actually conducted such simulations. We dropped USBs, saying like financial numbers, etc. And I'm glad to say that nobody fell for it other than myself. So.
that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
One of the questions that I love to ask everyone is that if you had to summarize everything that we talked about into one piece of sage advice for someone looking to break it into the
Mhm.
industry, what would
Mhm.
that be?
It is reach out to your within your network, outside of your network, reach out to people. Do not be shy, do not be afraid to have a conversation with anyone that you think and know are working in security. Having a simple, straight pointed conversation will yield a lot more information and benefit and direction than reading through 1,000 books, right? Definitely reach out to people, reach out to your professors, reach out to your colleagues that are in the security space. Just try and understand like what is happening in their world and how can you help.
Love it, love it, love it. Okay, that's it for today on CISO Thursdays for Breaking Into Cybersecurity. If you're following us on LinkedIn right now, follow or connect with myself or Siva. If you're following us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, that notification button. And if you're listening to us on podcast after the fact, welcome to share it with everyone that's interested. We need lots of folks to come into the industry, so just share away. And thank you all for joining us on another CISO Thursdays. Have a great rest of your day. Join us tomorrow at 1 p.m. for Breaking Into Cybersecurity. And we have a marketer turned privacy analyst. So we'll talk to them tomorrow and hear their story. Thank you much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for having me. Enjoy the rest of the day.